Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Sahana Sharan, and if this is the first segment that you're listening to, I head up the ACO clinical operations nationally. In this segment, we'll review the types of ACO practice reports that are currently being delivered to providers that have ACO member attribution, the resources that are available to the ACO practices to impact change, and our practice call to action and care opportunities that will drive the success in the ACO arrangements. If you're a participating provider in our ACO and have attributed membership, we have two types of actionable practice reports that we deliver to you, and we'll review each of these reports in detail in just a little bit. Each report is distributed every other quarter to help the providers understand not only the baseline performance, but also enable the practice to move the needle and positively trend on their performance. One is the patient attribution and the gaps in care report. The second is the ACO network utilization report, or the out of ACO network utilization report. The practices have tremendous opportunity for each of these reports. Let's review them a little more closely. The attribution and the gaps in care report contains a list of all the attributed members with gaps in care information that is flagged for members that are due for one of the gaps in care that we reviewed previously. And these are the core ACO quality measures that include annual physical exams, breast cancer screening, colon cancer screening, cervical cancer screening, hemoglobin A1C testing for patients with diabetes education, and MMR vaccination for pediatric population. This is an Excel report that is emailed to your practice every other quarter, and where a practice participates in multiple ACO arrangements, each ACO arrangement has a separate tab in the Excel report. And on the bottom half of the screen is a sample screenshot of this report, which highlights the ACO members and the provider information along with the gaps in care flagged for each of the members. The practices have an opportunity to review the report and conduct proactive outreach to patients and close the gaps in care. And please note that the gaps in care information is generated using the claims data from the payers. And you may notice that some of the members that show up on the report may have recently been to your practice where you may have already addressed the gap in care. But our overall goal and intent with this report is to equip your practice with actionable data to improve quality scores performance for the population in our ACO arrangements. The second type of report is the ACO network utilization report. And let's take a step back and review why it's important for the provider with attributed membership to know when their members are going outside of the ACO network to seek care. When an ACO member seeks care outside of the ACO network, we do not have adequate information to improve the quality and efficiency of care for the members of the non-ACO facility. We do not have visibility into the medical records for the members of the non-ACO network facility, and providers in the ACO network lose access to the integrated data information for the members. And ultimately, we lose the ability to effectively coordinate care for these members. And with that in mind, we believe that it is of prime importance for the ACO practice and the provider to know the top non-network facilities and the providers that their members are going to seek care. And at the bottom half of the screen is a screenshot of a sample out of ACO network utilization report. Fully understanding that most of our ACO arrangements are open access, which means that members are free to select the provider they wish to see, and it may not be possible to have 100% of the care delivered for the member within the ACO network of provider-owned facilities. But we do believe that any time an ACO member has a touch point with an ACO network provider, that the provider and the practice have an opportunity to educate their members about the benefits of seeking care at an ACO network facility or provider. And included with this report is information on how to access the ACO network directory that includes a list of providers that participate within the ACO network and also the list of facilities that are within the ACO network. So the practice can have this handy to use for purposes of educating the members, or even using that for referrals to appropriate care within the network. Now that we've reviewed the types of reports that are available to you, let's review the resources that we have put together to help your practice. Number one is the Member Outreach Assistance for Gaps in Care. We offer member outreach assistance to practices where an ACO care manager works alongside your practice to conduct proactive outreach on behalf of the practice to engage and educate the members and assist in scheduling appointments to fill the gaps in care. Outlined here on this slide are the workflow steps in the process. After your practice receives the attribution list and gaps in care report, our ACO care manager follows up with your practice to identify if you need assistance in conducting member outreach. And if you opt to utilize this assistance, we begin calling the members on behalf of your practice and educating the members on the preventative services they're due for, and also offer assistance in scheduling the visits with your practice to complete those preventative services. And at the conclusion of outreach, the ACO care manager sends a follow-up report back to your practice with the outcomes of outreach for each of the members we called. But if the practice wishes to handle the outreach, the ACO care manager will not conduct the member outreach on behalf of the practice. But in this instance, we do request the practice to send us a follow-up report with the outcomes of the outreach so we can input and track that information in our database. The second type of resource is the outreach conducted by the ACO care manager to all those members that are discharged from the hospital or ER to offer transition in care assistance. Within the first 48 hours after an ACO member is discharged from the hospital, the ACO care manager calls the member to check in with them to see how they're doing and whether they have any questions or concerns, and to identify if they have been scheduled for a follow-up visit with their attributed PCP. If a follow-up visit has not been scheduled, we schedule that with the practice and also communicate a discharge summary from the hospital to your practice. At this time, you also take the opportunity to make the member aware of the preventative services they may be due for. And in instances where we identify as the member benefiting from complex care management, we make a referral to a complex care management team member and keep the practice informed and in the loop. The third type of assistance is notification to the practices of when your attributed member is either scheduled for a future elective procedure at an out-of-ACO network facility or has been recently discharged from such a facility. For discharges from a non-ACO network facility, the ACO care manager conducts transition in care outreach within the first 48 hours, but the assistance offered here is limited because the care manager does not have visibility into the medical record information from the non-ACO facility. The PCP is notified, but no discharge summary can be communicated here due to the limitation that I just talked about. And for services into the future at non-ACO network facility that are scheduled, the ACO care manager provides the details of the service, expected date of discharge, along with any outstanding gaps in care for the member to the practice. So the practice can identify opportunities where appropriate to communicate with the admitting provider and establish communication around obtaining discharge records or information from the non-ACO facility. In order to better assist practices that have Medicare ACO members attributed to them, we have put together an annual wellness visit toolkit. And this provides some best practices in scheduling patients for their annual well exams and optimizing the workflow steps. It also includes coding guidelines and sample HRA forms that could be used as templates to build into your practice EMR, or even printed off and filled out if your practice is using paper charts. You should have received a copy of this toolkit along with your Medicare attribution and gaps in care report. And if for any reason you do not have this toolkit, please reach out to your ACO market director and they will be more than happy to provide you with a copy of this toolkit. I want to finish off this segment with 3 key takeaways for your practice. Number 1 is the message around the significance of in-ACO network utilization, your practice's role in educating your members about the benefits of going to an in-ACO network provider or facility, and utilizing the ACO network directory as a resource to help provide coordinated care to your ACO members. Number 2 is the care opportunity in addressing the gaps in care for your practice's ACO members and the availability of the ACO care manager's assistance in conducting member outreach on behalf of your practice. And number 3 is the ongoing network and peer-to-peer engagement with your colleagues. You might reference the ACO network directory to identify the peers that are in your field of practice, share opportunities and best practices either of you may have learned along the way. You may also identify your colleagues that are not a part of the ACO network, but would very well benefit from joining the network. For any questions or additional information, or if you have any peers that may be interested in joining the network, please feel free to reach out to your ACO's market director.